Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here, and today we are discussing quite the interesting little Tier 6 Premium Cruiser. A ship that is, in today's World of Warships, equally part downright useless in most cases, but absolutely terrifyingly good, to the point where she's been banned from some competitive game modes and events. And that is the Tier 6 Premium German Cruiser, the Graf Spee. Now, the Graf Spee is interesting for a few reasons. First off, she's old. She's almost 9. She's been with the game essentially from the beginning. She came out in 2016, fellas. Yeah, she's been around for a minute. So she's got to see basically every single, global change and rework and such that the game has gone through. And she's been through that, right? Secondly, she was one of the first, and I believe actually the first ship that kind of blends the lines between classes, because she is a cruiser, in-game classified as a cruiser, yet she has battleship caliber guns, 283mm guns, on a fairly heavily armored hull. So that's a little awkward, and we'll get there when we get there. Now, of course, in today's World of Warships, we have plenty of ships that do that. And I mean, I think it wasn't until like, 2018, 2019 that we started to see these cruisers that kind of blur the lines between classes, like with the Stalingrad and the Kronstadt and such. I guess you could maybe argue, the Henry IV back in the day kind of did that, but, she still had 240s. I mean, Graf Spee still has bigger guns than that ship, and that's a Tier 10 cruiser, right? But anyway, she was the first ship that, again, according to my memory, did this. And that, of course, leads to some problems. Because, well, just as the ship was designed and built, of course, it was a treaty ship, cruiser, pocket battleship, whatever you want to call it, right? Strap battleship guns onto a well-armored cruiser hull and hope that no one really notices, that it's, yeah, sure, it's a cruiser, but, or is it a battleship because it's got the battleship caliber guns, you hope that no one asks too many questions about it and you get around the various naval trees and limitations put on, that Germany at that time. I'm saying that Germany because I don't want YouTube to demonetize the channel as they've done so in the past. But anyway, so because of that, you're left with a very awkward situation in game. Because you have this ship that is classified as a cruiser, yet it has battleship caliber guns, especially by Tier 6 standards. Now, of course, when we're talking about modern World of Warships, we have plenty of cruisers that do this, even especially at higher tier. But again, the entire Dutch line does this, right? But even if you look at the Dutch line, sure, like the Golden Lou, the Tier 10, has, again, these 280-something caliber guns. I think they were actually 283s as well on the Golden Lou at Tier 10. And that's fine, There's well-armored battleships, well-armored cruisers at that tier that can handle that type of firepower, and there's other balancing factors applied to the Golden Lou, right? But then you go all the way down to the lower tier ships, you don't really find, even again in these lines that kind of blur the line between classes, guns this large at this low of a tier. And Tier 6 is, it's mid-tier, right? You don't have exceptionally well-armored cruisers at Tier 6, so 283mm guns are pretty potent. And sure enough, the Graf Spee, yeah, when the guns do bite, they bite quite hard. Her AP, it's that good old German AP, flat shell arcs, it hits hard, and it packs a punch. However, as I'm sure most of you are aware, cruisers don't really use AP a whole lot, besides like the British light cruisers, because they're legally only allowed to have AP shells, right? Cruisers spend most of their time spamming HE. And well, when you have a Graf Spee with 6 283mm guns, with a 20-something second reload time, I think it's 22 seconds, that isn't exactly going to cut it by cruiser standards. Because you see, cruisers, of course, they want to murder other cruisers and destroyers, right? But what do cruisers really want to get at? Battleships. They want to find battleships. They want to farm them for every single point of HP that they can get off of them, right? That is exceptionally hard to do in the Graf Spee because of her reload time. Add to the fact that, well, she only has 6 guns. And these 6 guns aren't exactly overly accurate by tier 6 standards, right? Because again, if you give her excellent accuracy at tier 6, then I mean, like, you're going to be pointing and clicking and deleting cruisers left, right, and center because, yeah, 283mm guns, they pack quite the punch, especially against tier 6 cruisers. I mean, each shell has an alpha damage of 8,400. So you get 6 of them together. 6 times 84 is a fairly large number that most tier 6 and tier 5 cruisers probably won't have a wonderful time dealing with if that amount of damage is applied to them at once. So you got to balance it out. 20-second reload time and relatively inaccurate guns when you get the bad dispersion rolls. Now, that does mean when you do get some hits, it's typically 1 or 2 hits. Well, remember what I said about those guns. They are quite potent, they have great penetration values, and they fly pretty quickly through the air, which leads to lots of overpins. So, when you do find a mid-tier cruiser and you do shoot at it, you tend to overpin it, which isn't exactly a joyous occasion, especially since now you have a 20-second reload, and now they're going to pretty much farm you down with their HE spammy guns. So that isn't great. However, there are situations, once you get to know the ship, that the Graf Spee can and will excel in, like what you've been watching in the background. This is a tier 6 and tier 7 game. In this matchmaking, knowing that I'm in a Graf Spee, and yeah, I can go after cruisers, but it's also very capable of going after same tier, like tier 7-ish battleships. Why? Because the armor is actually fairly good. And if you can get battleships to aim for your main armor belt and you stay relatively angled to them, then yeah, you can bounce a lot with the main armor belt of the Graf Spee. And she has a huge HP pool, you know, not to mention that, literally the biggest HP pool of any tier 6 cruisers because, well, it's a big ship, right? So she's 39,400 HP because of that. So you got a fairly healthy, pretty tanky cruiser here when, again, well, not really when, but it is fairly tanky. And again, you can bounce battleship caliber guns if you angle properly and bait them into shooting your midsection, which most battleships would probably do because, well, at mid tiers, mostly newer players, and they're still learning the ropes, right? And, well, you have that funny cruiser icon above your head, and, well, I've been able to 1 or 2 tap most of those when RNG cooperates with me and applies good dispersion to my shells. So I'm going to shoot you in the midsection too and, well, murder you, and then you bounce a fair amount of their shells, and then they realize they are in trouble. Because, while yes, you will overpin other cruisers and such, you will bite into battleship armor, especially like the upper belts if you can't penetrate the main battery belt, which again at tier 6 and tier 7 you can in a lot of cases. On top of that as well, the ship does have, well, pretty much every single gimmick the Germans get bolted to her deck. She gets hydroacoustic search, she gets repair party, she gets torpedoes, she gets a catapult plane. That's a lot to have on a cruiser at tier 6. Insane levels of utility, fellas. So, all that does lead to a pretty good ship in tier 6 and tier 7 matchmaking. However, it is one of the most miserable experiences in the game to be in the ship and get double up tier to tier 8, because you quickly become quite useless. Because, well, again, you only have 6 guns, and the RNG is not as forgiving as I would like it to be when I'm playing this ship, right? So when you're playing a higher tier, things are at longer ranges. You have 6 guns. Your AP is excellent, but your HE, which I forgot to mention, is very anemic because it's German HE, has low alpha, but good pins. But again, you have a 20-second reload time, so you can forget about HE spamming in this ship. So when you're dealing with higher tier battleships, again, like tier 8 and some of the more well-armored tier 7 battleships, you're having a bad time because they're bouncing your shells, you're only landing 1 or 2 shells, and then, you know, because you can't get right in their face because it's high tier, because they can and will murder you at that point with, you know, tier 8 battleships. Yeah, you're bouncing shells, you're getting overpinned, you're getting maybe 1 pin every 20 seconds. You're not doing a lot in terms of damage. So, as far as random battles go, in today's World of Warships, you can have matches like the one that should have just ended for you guys that was pretty good. I got to bully a couple of battleships. I almost sunk the Colorado as well, and I even sunk a destroyer because the AP alpha is so crazy on this thing that, yeah, you probably should just keep AP loaded when dealing with destroyers, because when you get all those shells to connect, it's doing more damage than you would with HE, and again, it's just a better ammo. Now, of course, if you want to break destroyer modules and such, yeah, by all means, keep HE loaded, but if you want to do damage, keep the AP loaded. So, as far as random battles go, especially with today's build of warships, she's not doing that great. Because for every match you get like that, which is a pretty solid match for a tier 6 cruiser, especially the Graf Spee, you get 10 matches like the one you're watching right now, where, you know, you're either bottom tier or you're mid tier in mostly a tier 7, tier 8 game, and you can't really keep up like most cruisers can, because you can't fall back on that good HE spam. But where does the terrifying part of the ship come in? Anything that is tier 6, ranked clan battles, if you weren't there for the tier 6 clan battle season, you missed out on a Graf Spee party. They just gave the thing away in the dockyard that, I think it was the German destroyer dockyard. I can't remember the name of it right now. They gave it away during that dockyard, and it was everywhere. And with this armor at tier 6, especially in a competitive setting where the number of battleships is highly limited, you are a god at that point. And even in like tier 6 ranked, this thing is crazy. Again, just the utility this thing brings to the table. That long duration, long range German hydro, 5.5 kilometer hydro at tier 6 with the German runtime, that's amazing. That's awesome. And you get a heal on top of all that armor that you have, on top of the battleship caliber guns. So when this thing can get into a tier 6 bracket and stay there and not have to deal with getting up tiered and such, it is amazing. Again, with the utility and the firepower that it brings to the table, and the survivability as well. Again, trying to play against these things in clan battles was absolutely miserable, which got it banned from clan battles a couple of times when they tried doing it at tier 6 again, because it was just unbelievably popular. Entire teams, I think it was like a Mutsu or West Virginia 44th that was even out then, or one of the other tier 6 16-inch gun battleships, and then everything else was Graf Spees, because you have an insane health advantage at that point. What are you going to do? Farm down 5 Graf Spees and a Mutsu, as you know, on top of each other? No, it's just not going to happen, right? So the ship, if you got it and anything tier 6 competitive comes out, where again it's just at tier 6 small format, this ship is absolutely amazing. Now, of course, the biggest twist in this story is that she's not available anymore for some reason. I don't know why. Again, they gave it away during that dockyard event. They've given this ship away so much. There's probably some old, I don't know how long those codes last, but there's probably some old promo videos with some YouTubers where you get a Graf Spee for free. You know, it's kind of a joke amongst older players. You know, you got your government mandated Graf Spee, right? Because they gave her away so much, or they put her on sale so often. So yeah, again, unfortunately, she's not available right now, which is really a bummer, because she's a pretty cool historical ship, even though she's, you know, terrible in random battles. But it's just so funny how in random battles she's so, you know, at best case scenario, on average, she's like mid, with a good game every now and then, as you know most ships do get. But like in competitive, she's, you know, one of the first picks for anything tier 6 competitive at all, right? So it's just such a funny dynamic with the Graf Spee here, and a ship that I would very much like to see return to the game in some way, shape, or form. Again, I don't know why it's not available on sale for, you know, whatever reason. I'm sure Wargaming has their reasons, but who knows? Maybe it was too popular. But guys, that's my 2 cents on the Graf Spee. Just going back, looking at ships that we haven't talked about in a hot minute. If she does come up on sale, I would encourage you to pick her up. She's like a tier 6 ship, so I doubt she'd be that costly unless they do stuff for like a loot box or something, which I would be pretty upset about. But yeah, if she does show up back in the shop or in the army, I would encourage you guys to pick her up just for, again, tier 6 rank. She'll take you through that, no problems. If you, again, you know, learn the ship and play her properly. So guys, hope you guys have a wonderful Saturday, wonderful weekend. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.